From the high limestone of the Cumberland Plateau to the sunken earth along the banks of the Tombigbee River, the state of Alabama suffers no shortage of strangeness, or in this case, spooky women. The Gadsden Witch, the ghost of Sally Carter, Huggin' Molly. But these are mostly ghosts, whether they be an old woman on a dirt road claiming she sold her soul to the devil, or a young maiden from a disturbed grave, or for that matter, a 7-foot woman who just wants to cuddle, or scream in your ear, or both. But the same cannot be said about the subject of this story, because the Alabamians who saw her claim that she was as real as she was hairy, and as hairy as she was beautiful. I'm Skinnee White, and this is The Wolf Woman of Mobile, Alabama. The place, Mobile, Alabama. The year, 1971. A flap year, as paranormal journalist John A. Keel would have called it. A weird year. On the evening of April Fool's Day, Mobile police received a report of a strange creature lurking around Davis Avenue, located in the Saraland neighborhood, just west of the bayous of the Mobile-Tensaw Delta Wildlife Management Area. According to the Mobile Register, a man had been hunting in one of the marshes when he encountered a beautiful woman. From the waist up, at least. The rest of her was all wolf. Quote, "It was like a woman and wolf, pretty and hairy," an unnamed eyewitness, one of many, told the Register. "My daddy saw it down in a marsh and it chased him home," said a teenaged female witness. At least he had sense enough to run away. Clearly, pretty wolf woman was not on his bucket list. The youngin' continued, "Now my mommy keeps all the doors and windows locked." I'll bet she did. Monster or no, you do not describe another woman to your wife as pretty. I can hear it now. Just how pretty? What do you mean, pretty? She probably sat up all night, twice as armed as her husband had ever been in his lifetime, too preoccupied with his sanity to scrutinize her own, eating coffee grounds off of a hunting knife. The Smith & Wesson Ladies Spring Collection. It doesn't include wolfskin, but tomorrow it will. Of all things, she may have thought to herself, a goddamn wolf woman. It's very likely that the strangeness of that hunter's night did not end when he got to the safety of his own home. It had only just begun. But as for Mobile, more than 50 citizens called the police to report the wolf woman, mostly in the plateau area near Chickasaw Creek, over the next 10 days. Quote, "The top half was a woman, and the bottom half was a wolf," said another witness. There were so many reports that according to the Register, the cops had to take it seriously. And that's rare. Wolf woman fever. Suddenly, everybody was seeing her, and even many cops had to admit that it seemed increasingly less likely that it was all just some elaborate April Fool's joke. A drawing of the wolf woman was done and published in the Mobile Register. This would turn out to be her most lasting mark on Mobile, Alabama, because just as suddenly as she'd appeared, she was gone, before law enforcement officers ever got their chance to face the same paranoid marital scrutiny as that hunter did. Let's have a look at the lay of the land around where Wolf Woman was sighted. Hello, Google Earth. It's me again, and I'm not up to anything useful. I'm just trying to find a habitat for a wolf woman. Oh look, that's a nice delta you have there, and it's big enough to be conducive to people having weird encounters with animals. Here's a question. Do, did, or would wolves live in a delta? The answer is yes on all counts, but it's incredibly rare. Of all the varieties of American terrain, wetlands were listed as the last and least likely kind in which you would find a wolf, at least according to this veterinary site. In other words, you're more likely to encounter a wolf in the desert than you are a marsh or a swamp. Remember also that wolves themselves are incredibly rare these days because we've hunted them nearly to extinction. Now, the only wolf truly known to the eastern half of the United States is the red wolf, and by 1971 there were only 17 of these. They were taken into a, quote, captive breeding program. By 1980 they were declared extinct because there were none left in the wild. So while it's unlikely that a wolf would have been seen in a swamp, it's just as unlikely that a wolf would have been seen at all. But to be fair, when you're talking about a wolf woman, we can just throw the natural world right out the window. You know, before it starts to embarrass us. Listen to this one. One article tried to debunk the wolf woman as a dog with a wig glued on its head. Now remember, 50 Alabamians called the police on this woman and said she was beautiful. And they didn't call the police on her for being a smoke show. They called the police on her because she was, quote, half wolf. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the wolf part that was the smoke show. It was the wolf part that was the call the police part. Another theory is that she was an escaped sideshow act. And I liked this one. But it's easy to write this one off for the following reason. If a sideshow had a, quote, wolf woman that outrageous or remarkable, then they'd have left a footprint of their own. They didn't. There's actually less evidence of a sideshow being in the area than there is of a wolf woman being in the area, if you count witness testimony. So sideshow's cool and all, but it doesn't work. Now here's another, quote, real-world explanation. Human-animal genetic hybrid. And if that sounds tinfoily to you, well, I got news for you. It's a thing. Yeah, but this was 1971. We weren't as advanced, you might say. Well, a Soviet biologist was attempting human-chimpanzee hybrids in the 1920s. And it didn't pan out, but the 20s are a pretty big head start, and a couple of Chinese scientists claimed in 1968 that they got the job done. That's another story for another time. Or never. Ugh. Was Wolf Woman just a massive April Fool's prank that went too far? Maybe. Was she an outright lie which snowballed into an hysteria that wasted police resources? Could be. And even if that is the truth, she still belongs to the people of Mobile, Alabama. Maybe she wasn't unlike an ultra-terrestrial or system animal, a fairly Jungian idea expressed by previously mentioned John Keel, in which these events we can't explain are generated by a superconsciousness outside our own, or perhaps by the land itself. Or sometimes it's the lingering fiber of historical events, ancient or otherwise. Or is Wolf Woman a symbol? Of what? She first appeared, threatening and exotic and beautiful, to Mobile men whose Mobile wives and Mobile mothers had been building steel warships for ADSCO since World War II. I don't know. Just something I was thinking about. So maybe Wolf Woman is at least something very different from her supernatural lady contemporaries in Alabama. Soul-stealing witch, disturbed grave ghost, giant hug monster lady. But nobody described these other things as pretty. So I guess she had that going for her.